predictors of sticking at exercise, and how can we maybe hack those, if you like, and use them ourselves?
Yeah, I think that, and it sort of it crosses over both ways in terms of operators as well as participants and members. But the first thing you have to think about is visit frequency. You have to create a visit frequency that's sustainable, and that's one of the things that people don't usually start with. They let me step back a second. I work from this perspective. If you don't get their head, you don't get their body. On any given day, it's the head that decides whether the body's going to the gym or working out. Until you get to a level, where that becomes an automatic behavior. You don't think about going, you just go. Now, some people refer that to as a habit. As someone who studied psychology, it's probably not a habit because it's not something that's traditionally addictive and you need more and more of it to satiate you and things like that. But I understand when people call it an exercise habit.
What would you call it, just out of interest?
Routine.
Okay.
But routines build habits. So if you want to build a habit, you need to start with a routine. If you want to build a habit or a routine, it has to occur at least once per week. If the frequency of the behavior is less than once per week, it's not probably something you're going to sustain, and it's more of a random act rather than a regular act. And what you're looking for is this sustained regular act. So I think the first thing that new exercisers need to consider is actually how often can I come, not how often do I want to go.
Yeah.
Because we all want to go more, and in behavioral economics they call it intention bias. We all think we're going to do more than we actually do. We all plan to do more than we actually do, and then things go astray. So I know, you go to the cinema quite regularly. I thought at the beginning of this year I'm going to go to the cinema more. That's my intention bias. I didn't go at all last year, so I only need to go once this year to do more than last year. I still haven't been, and we're in September.
There's an interesting thing. The way I think of that is like because if you're going to be able to go once a week, that's great. If you say you want to go 3 times a week, the intention bias, but you're not going to be able to, you're going to be you're like in your head you'll be failing every week. Is that right?
That's exactly.
So at least if you say I'm going to go once and you end up going twice, you're winning.
Yeah,
you're already onto a winner, even just by going twice. Yeah,
most definitely. So also, I would encourage people to consider how many sessions they're going to do per month and band it. So 4 to 8 sessions per month, because there are some weeks when it's very difficult to get in, life, work, everything else, and other weeks where it's a little bit more straightforward. So if I said to someone, and I was training a new client, I go, you need to be looking to train 4 to 8 times per month. I give them an upper and lower range to work within. Now, if they go over 8, I don't really care, but they can usually get 4 sessions in. My next set of questions are, which days, what time? So I want to get really, really specific. So rather than, and I hear it when I watch consultations, instructors saying to their clients, how often were you thinking of training? 3 times a week. It's like a quiz. How many times are you thinking of training? 3 times a week. Is that the right answer? And how long were you thinking of training for? About an hour. It's a quiz, because they think those are the right answers. Whereas if you don't ask that and you go, okay, open your diary, show me which days you're coming in and at what times, that's much more specific. Once you've done that, diarise it. Put it in the diary, put it in your schedule. To start with, there'll be some flexibility to that. But over time, if you keep going on the same day and the same time, the people around you begin to recognize that's the time you do such and such. Therefore, I'm not going to ask James, and I'm going to make a guess at this. I'm not going to ask James if he's available on a Wednesday afternoon, because he goes to the cinema on Wednesday afternoons to watch his Marvel films. So there's no point.
You've been spying on me, Paul.
I just follow what you do, mate. But it's you when you pick up on someone's behaviour like that, or someone goes, "Well, I can't do this on this day because," you go, "Okay, fine. When can you?" And you can get a much more realistic exercise schedule into someone's diary to do that. And I think also, if you're newer to exercise, or exercise is something you do because you either feel you need to do it, you want to do it, but you're not part of that lifestyle that exercise is everything to you. Sometimes comparing yourself to people who live the lifestyle of exercise, where that comes before everything, and they're training, here's the training session I did today. This is what I did yesterday. This is what I'm doing tomorrow. It's like, wow, I feel as a bit of a fraud if I'm only going once or twice a week. But you're going once or twice a week. You're talking about 52 to 104 training sessions a year if you're consistent. So I would start people with, let's get a realistic amount of time or days that you can train, and then a realistic amount of time when that fits within your diary.
Because everybody, like you say, they think there's that right answer when you speak to them, and it's like 3 to 4 times a week, and they're going to go from nothing to suddenly this, and like you say, it's almost people say what they think they want you to hear, don't they?
Well, I think you need to get micro commitments, don't you? You need to get people to buy in on things. When I'm talking to someone, I'm like, I think you commit to 2 times a week, and they say yes or no. Are you prepared to follow a nutrition plan that's going to help you achieve your goals? And they say yes or no. So they start thinking in terms of what they're committing to, and that they start making these psychological adjustments so that they understand that they're now being taken on a coaching process, and that they have something to bring to the table. Because it's quite easy for people to purchase themselves a result without having any buy-in. And I think, we talked about Peter. We talked about my scale of 1 to 10. Sometimes that works really well, where I'm trying to get people to place themselves on a scale, because I want to kind of see their ability to take action. And I think if I'm going to write a book, it's going to be The Key to Success Diary Management. Is probably going to be it, because it's never about the diet. It's never about the training. As long as they show up in the door, then I know I'm going to get them a result. But if I can't get them in the door because they haven't sorted out their diary, I'm not going to be able to do anything,
Well, we've got research on personal training that shows people who have personal training on a set day and set time of a week, every week, stay longer than general gym users. But people who have personal training on an ad hoc basis don't stay as long as regular gym users.
Yeah. I've written something down here about my guys, because a lot of them are, they've got jobs and have meetings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I might get something in the morning for somebody coming to a 9:30 session. I can't come to the 9:30 session now because someone slotted a meeting in my diary.
Yeah.
And I'm like, somebody else has got control of your diary. How does that work? And number 2, what would happen if you had another meeting at 9:30?
Yeah.
That was already in your diary. It's like, well, they wouldn't be able to slot it in. It's like, right, so they've just slotted it in there because it suits them, but not you.
Yeah.
You've had to push this aside because it wasn't in. It's like, put it in your diary, block that time out.
Yeah.
And then nobody can take it away. It's managed.
When I used to train clients, a lot of my clients were accountants, because I found that they were really good payers. And they had the money.
Yeah, but they also fight you on the costs.
Oh, well, mine didn't, because I was stupidly too cheap. But one of the things we used to do is we would get the diary out at the beginning of the month, and we'd schedule in their sessions. But the last week of the month, I'd say don't put anything in. Because they're tying, because of the nature of their work, the last week of the month, when they're trying to tie up all the books, that's when they're most stressed. And I say to them, let's not put a session in, but if you can find some time to do a session on your own, get on with it. But we'd also change the amount of time they train for. So earlier in the month, they were doing 3 times a week for about an hour. But later in the month, they were doing 2 times a week for 45 minutes. So we didn't fix the amount of time or the number of sessions per week. We just looked at their diary first and said, where can we fit these in?
That's brilliant, because that's another thing I thought I had when Paul was talking as well, was in the consultation, instead of like one of the first questions being, right, so what result do you want and how many times a week do you want to work towards it? It's, what does your lifestyle look like? What do you do? What do you do for a living? How many kids you got?
Yeah.
What do you do at weekends? Can you, because people will go, I've got all this time at the weekends. Well, they haven't, because they're ferrying kids all over. Or their kids are quite young at the minute, but in 6 months' time, they're going to be joining clubs and all of this sort of stuff. So that immediately tells you as the trainer as well, like, right, you're saying you can commit to this.
Yeah.
I already know you're probably not going to be able to. So I'm going to give you a win out of this and say, let's do 2 sessions or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever